Okay, great. So again, thank you to everybody. Welcome to Student Loans 101, our 2021 virtual Zoom workshop. A little bit about today's workshop, like I've already said, your microphone and video has been disabled. Just be respectful in the chat. We already talked a little bit about chat. This presentation is specific to Alberta residents only. And if you're not sure if you're an Alberta resident, like if you've moved around or your family's moved around a little bit in the last few years, just let us know and we can kind of point you in the right direction. Student loan residency, you're going to apply for the student loan where you have provincial residency, and that is based on kind of where you've lived over the last year or so. So let us know if you have any questions about that. And if you're unable to log in during your student loan application, we're hoping, we haven't had a lot of students with troubles lately, but if you're unable to log in, you'll have to contact the Maddie, My Alberta Digital ID contact center, which is only open during regular business hours. But I think most folks should be able to log in. So a bit more again about the presentation. We're going to start with some basics. I'm going to give you a rundown of just generally how student loans work. I'm going to give you a quick overview of the actual student loan application. So you're going to see you're going to see screenshots of the actual application and some of the more difficult parts of the application. Some of the questions in the application that are a little bit more difficult to answer. So we'll be going through some of those, or we think that are a little bit more difficult, a little bit tricky. And then after the presentation, there's going to be time for you to ask lots of questions. My name, I didn't introduce myself, is Haley, and I work in the Office of Student Financial Support, dealing mostly with student loans issues. I am in Edmonton, very close to the University of Alberta, actually right on Treaty 6 land. So if you have any questions as we go through, feel free to throw those in the chat. As we said, as we alluded to, our office is called Student Financial Support, and we do a lot of different things really dealing with money, as our two lovely advisors already mentioned. We do things with scholarships and awards, emergency funding, bursary funding, and then government student loan funding like this. We don't manage the government student loan, that's from the government, but we can help do things like this, help you apply. We have a lot of experience with that as well. So if you wanted to come chat with us or contact us after this presentation, there will be a place for you to go, not physically yet, but you can contact us at the Student Service Center. If some of you were on campus before, this is what used to be called Student Connect, is now called the Student Service Center. You can call, chat, email the Student Service Center, and then starting in mid-August, there will be some folks there in person as well. So we're also going back to school. This is what it looks like when it's normal times. It's like a cute little center, and there's little couches, usually candy out and about. So we're excited to have people back in the center again one day and safely. So that should be happening pretty soon though. So that's happening too. So any questions after this, you're going to come see us at the Student Service Center. And we're going to start right in with some student loan basics. So like I said, this is going to take up a big chunk of this presentation. Stick with me. We're going to have as much fun as we can. If you have any questions, you can just go ahead and throw them in that chat. All right, so this is the student loan process. It's not too bad. It's only a few steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, not too bad. And you don't even have to do anything in each of these steps. Some of these aren't even your steps. So let's talk about this process. The first thing you're going to do with the student loan is you're going to apply for a student loan. Some of you may be applying for the student loan today. That's when we have these workshops in person, because we normally do have them in person. That's what we do. Everybody comes into a computer lab and you sit down and you log in your student loan and we walk around and help you apply for your student loan. So you might be doing that today. You maybe have already applied for your loan and you're here for just general information, or you're going to apply in the future, what have you. But the first thing you're going to do is apply for your student loan. And that obviously is done by you. So when you apply for a student loan, just some basic information, you are going to apply for a loan on one application. You are applying for 3 different things: an Alberta student loan, a Canada student loan, and grant funding. So there's no separate application. If you hear the words Canada loan, Alberta loan, it's all just on one application. You're going to apply using the Alberta Student Aid portal, the Maddie account, or the My Alberta Digital ID account, which I think a lot of us are familiar with after this year. It can take about 4 years to, sorry, 4 years. It can take about 4 weeks. 4 years would be very government-like, but it would take about 4 weeks to process an application. That being said, many students are going to receive an automatic assessment. So you're going to click submit and it's going to tell you almost immediately what you're eligible for. If you don't see that there's nothing wrong. Some students can get an automatic assessment. Some students it can take up to 4 weeks to process, but really the loan applications go quite quick these days. There is opportunities to do an appeal. So if you think that you've written something down wrong in the application, there isn't a lot of places to make a lot of errors. You're going to see what I mean about that when we look at the application. But if you think you've made some sort of error, you can always do an appeal. However, that does take a fair bit of time. While the actual application can be anywhere between instantaneous to a few days to receive, an appeal will take closer to 6 weeks to get. So if you have any questions, if you think you might be eligible for an appeal, you're certainly welcome to contact Alberta Student Aid. But we also have a lot of experience with that. So if you're having trouble getting through to them, or if they say something that you just find confusing, you can also contact us at the Student Service Center and we'll say, yeah, that's eligible for an appeal. You should absolutely do this. This is how you do it. Or we'll say, that's not one of the things that they look at, or actually whatever. So you can always come and see us and we can help you with that appeal process. All right, so you've applied for your government student loan. That's great. Then your student loan online is sent to downtown Edmonton to be assessed at Alberta Student Aid. Just a few notes about student loan assessment. As I mentioned, it can happen almost instantaneously, but how that assessment works is, here's a few notes about how that assessment works. So parental and spousal income is not considered as a resource on the Alberta student loan. So maybe you have an older sibling or an older cousin or a parent who's, you maybe have heard the adage, my parents make too much money, so I can't get a student loan. That's certainly something. I just read a book that was nominated for the Giller, and in it, the character could not get their student loan. It's a different province. But in Alberta, that is just simply not the case. So parental and spousal income is no longer considered as a resource. If your parents are giving you money to help you go to school, that's a bit of a different situation. But just straight up, their income will not impact your ability to receive the student loan funding. May impact your ability to receive grant funding, but not the loan funding in Alberta. Dependent students, or really anyone, the easiest way to think about it is anyone under the age of 23. You're going to hear me use this term dependent, independent students a little bit. It has nothing to do with your living situation, your life, how you live your life. It's just, there's purely a formula thing that they do. And the easiest way to think about it is students who are under the age of 23 are considered dependent students. And all that means is that to apply for grant funding, you need to include your parents' income as well as your own. We can talk a little bit about, we absolutely will talk a little bit more about that as we go through the application. All right. Some of you, I don't need you to commit this information, these big numbers to memory or anything like that, but I think there's some students who think that they might be eligible for, might be receiving a lot of money. Some students may be thinking they're going to get less money, and there is an assessment that's done, but on top of that assessment, there's also a maximum that you can receive every year, and then a lifetime maximum that you can receive. So every year for an undergraduate student, as of right now, the annual maximum for the yearly maximum for an undergraduate student is $15,000. That's for 2 semesters, so September to April. And graduate master's students, law, med dentistry, pharmacy, those professional programs do go up a little bit, but the regular undergraduate student, you're looking at a $15,000 annual maximum. That doesn't mean you're going to get $15,000. You might get a little bit less than that. Let's say you're living at home. You might not get the full $15,000 based on the assessment. You might get more than that, actually, because there's grant funding that goes on top of that. It's like a little bit of a funny way to think of funding. It's a maximum of $15,000, but grant funding might go on top of that as well. So that's kind of a funny way to think of. All I need you to see for here is that there are yearly maximums to how much that you can receive. So if you've received $15,000 in loan funding and you're thinking about doing an appeal and you're only in school for September to April, that's it for that. There's similarly a lifetime loan maximum. Again, these are big, scary numbers maybe for some of you. Maybe they're not enough for others depending on your program. So you don't need to commit these to memory. All we need to know is that there is a lifetime maximum as well that you might hit. The other thing I need to talk about is if you're currently in a Bachelor of Science, or if you're thinking about going into medicine or dentistry or law or MBA, or even grad school, you'll notice that the lifetime maximums for those programs are higher, and that's because those programs cost more money. Dentistry is by far our most expensive program. So if that's something that you kind of have in your mind that you've always really wanted to do, just something to start. This is a little hint that these programs cost just a little bit more money. And you might want to just look at those costs for the future. Cool. Many students want to know, okay, yeah, loans are cool, but what about the grant funding, which is great. So grant funding, when I'm talking about it in this context, we're talking about funding that's available from the federal provincial government through the government student loan application. So like I said, it's a part of the student loan application. There are grants based on a few different eligibility criteria. The main one is income. So there's an income-based one, but there are also other grants based on disability. And if you yourself have dependents, so if you yourself have children, again, you're assessed through the student loan application. Grants are great because you don't have to pay them back. Right now, the standard income grant, it's been doubled during COVID. It was $3,000. It's been bumped up to $6,000 for this year, which is awesome. And that $6,000 you don't have to pay back, provided that you don't withdraw from full-time studies right away. You get that $6,000 to go to school to do what you need to do, which is awesome. That being said, it's usually not enough to pay for all of your expenses, right? So a grant is really great, but $6,000 is usually not enough to pay for tuition, fees, books, and all of your living expenses. So just something to keep in mind. I used to list all of the grants, but it's just too much to have on one slide. So if you're really interested in seeing what the grants are and their criteria, you can visit the Alberta Student Aid website. That being said, you're going to be assessed for it right when you apply on the student loan. Again, I'm going to just hammer home the dependent independent thing. I've already mentioned this a few times. These words you've heard come up, again, have nothing to do with your current living situation necessarily. It's more to do just with this little formula that they have. So if you were under the age of 23, you haven't been out of high school for more than 4 years, you didn't take a 2-year break after, you didn't take a 2-year break where you weren't in school, you don't have dependents, then you're considered a dependent student. So I know I just went through all that pretty quickly. Again, the main one is, are you under the age of 23? It's very likely that you are a dependent student. Independent students is anybody 23 or older who are married common law or took 4 years off after high school or took a 2-year break. That whole spiel, that whole little paragraph there. Again, the age cutoff is one of the easier ways to identify which one you are. And the only reason why this classification is important, again, it's because if you're a dependent student, to be considered for grant funding, you'll put your income and your parents' income. If you're an independent student, your little family size of 1, you'll put your income, or if you have a spouse, you put your spouse's income as well. Excellent. Lindsay, anything I'm missing? Anything to add? Doing good so far? Everybody's feeling good? Okay, cool. We're already on to step number 3. And step number 3, you don't have to do anything. Not really. This is the section where Alberta Student Aid comes to the University of Alberta and says, hey, is this student applied for a Bachelor of Science for full-time for September to April? Are they registered full-time in a Bachelor of Science for September to April? So that confirmation of registration process happens in usually about mid-August. And that's where us here at the university have to do some work and confirm that you are registered. The most important aspect of this is that if you're applying for a full-time loan for fall and winter, you have to be full-time registered for fall and winter for us to confirm that, loan. So really the most important thing here is if you're applying for fall and winter right now on your government student loan, make sure that you are full-time, and full-time would be at least 9 credits a term. For most programs, 9 credits a term is 3 classes a semester. 3 9-credit classes a semester. Now that might be a little bit different. If you're in engineering, sometimes your classes are each like I think 1 credit each or something like that, but make sure that you're in 9 credits a semester. Okay, now if you are not sure exactly what you want to be registered in the winter and you're on a wait list, that's just fine. They don't care which courses. If you swap out later, that's fine. We're not keeping track of everybody's course. You're not writing your courses down on your application or anything like that. If you are planning on being registered in 5 courses in the winter, but you're only registered 3 right now, that's absolutely just fine, as long as you're registered in 3 each semester so that we confirm that you're a full-time student. That's kind of like the most important aspect of that confirmation of registration. I will just say that I'll put a little asterisk on there for the 9 credits a semester is a little bit different if you're a student registered with our Permanent Disability Office or Accessibility Resources Office. If you have questions about that, you can just chat with us afterwards. And it's important to maintain your full-time registration while you're a full-time student. That being said, things come up and you might need to drop a course. So you might need to go from full-time to part-time, which again is generally 3 classes a semester or 9 credits. And if you need to drop a course from 3 courses to 2, that's okay. You need to do what you need to do. All we recommend is you come chat with us and we'll let you know if that will have any impact on your student loan. It might, depending on when you decide to drop those courses, but that's okay. We'll help you through that process. Just come and see us. Wow, already at step 4. So you applied for a loan, it's gotten assessed, we confirm your registration, and now your job really, after you apply for the loan, is just to keep an eye on your inboxes. You are gonna get tired of me saying this. I'm gonna mention this about 7,000 times through the application, but if there's one thing I can really hammer home is that not to ignore your emails and not to ignore the notifications that come at the various student loan portals. There is more than one student loan portal, more than one student loan website, which is a bit frustrating. I'll show you what those are, but the most important thing is that you don't ignore those portals, okay? So right after you apply for the student loan, you're assessed and it's confirmed. If it's your first time applying, there's going to be an extra document you have to do, and by document I mean online form. I don't know what else to call it, online document. You're going to have to do that. The instructions for how to do that form, actually 2 of them, there'll be one for Canada, one for Alberta. The instructions for how to do those forms will be in your Alberta Student Aid inbox. So again, it's very important that you check that inbox, set up your notification settings, text message, email, what have you. Because if you don't do those 2 documents, you're not getting your money. So just make sure you keep an eye on your inbox. The other thing about the inbox is they really don't send a lot of mail. Like they're not just this, it's not like a Groupon thing where you're getting emails like every day. It's really, they're going to send you notifications, A, when you apply for a new loan, and they're going to tell you how much you received, and B, if something's wrong. So it's really important that you keep an eye on your inbox, okay? Not a lot of emails coming at you. And that being said, 2 emails in a semester might feel like a lot when you're a student because there's like a million things on your plate, but this is an important one. Just keep an eye on the inbox. Cool. I'm probably gonna say that like 800 more times, but it'll be fine. Keep an eye on your inbox. Whoops, that's what I said. And then after that, you're keeping an eye on that inbox, you do those loan forms. There is potentially, if you're married or common law, another form you'll have to do, but if you keep an eye on your inbox, all the instructions will be there for you. And then, boom, money is sent out. Just a whole bunch of money is going to be sent out in your name after you apply for the student loan. So that process itself is a bit interesting. Your funding will be dispersed, I say this, 1 to 3 weeks after your registration is confirmed. So if you're applying for a student loan today, amazing, great work, pat yourself on the back. You are so ahead of schedule. But if you're applying for it today in July, your loan is not going to be confirmed until August, late August, and then your student loan is going to arrive the 1st or 2nd week of September. So many of you will get a letter saying your first part of your student loan funding is coming on September 1st, and that is a lie. It is coming the first week or so of September, okay? Especially because there's usually the long weekend in there. It just takes, sometimes it takes thousands of dollars. It takes time for thousands of dollars of money to move around. So we just really like to hammer that point home, because on September 1st, we inevitably have just like a ton of students being like, it was supposed to be here. And I don't blame them. The letter says September 1st, but if you're hitting week 3 and you still haven't seen any loan money and you've done your loan agreements, then you certainly could come chat with us, but no stress if it's not there on exactly the 1st. If you're applying for a student loan later in the year, we usually confirm funding pretty quick. Like if your loan is approved and we receive that confirmation of enrollment days after, and your loan funding will arrive 1 to 3 weeks after that. If you're applying for, that's what I just said, in summer, and your student loan will come in 2 installments. If you're applying for fall and winter, one of my dates, September to April, your student loan is going to come 50% in the beginning of your program and 50%, sorry, every year and 50% halfway through. So for most students, that's 50% in September, 50% in January. If you're I don't think we saw anybody in there, but if you're speech language pathology or grad student, it comes 50% in the beginning and 50% halfway through, which might be a little bit later for you, March or April, depending on when your program ends or when your year ends. All or a portion of your loan or grant might actually go directly towards your University of Alberta tuition. It will never be applied towards residence fees, books, supplies, any fees that you owe or anything like that. It's a pretty decent process. It goes pretty smoothly. That being said, you don't really get another notification that it has occurred. So you're just gonna wanna make sure that you keep an eye on your BearTrex account and your bank account in late August, early September to see that your whole tuition has been paid off and that your student loan arrives at the university and in your bank account afterwards. If I will also note that being said, if it does get your tuition does get double paid for some reason, so maybe your parents get nervous or something and pay your tuition ahead of time, you don't need to do that. Your student loan will pay it off. But if that does happen, if there's some sort of double payment thing that happens, we will refund your student loan directly to you. And the other thing to note, and we have Henny here to help with that, but if you have any University of Alberta scholarships coming, those will be put on your account after the add drop deadline, which is middle of September. Tuition is not due for fall until the end of September. Okay, so lots of time to have that sorted out. I know I went through that part pretty quickly, so just let me know if you have any questions about that. Lindsay, any questions about or any other thoughts about disbursement? No, I covered it all.
Buddy was questioning how do you know kind of what is a university gets some and we get some and some's a loan and some's a grant, so trying to kind of keep it all straight when really it just kind of all comes as a lump, right?
It does. You will get a letter from Alberta Student Aid letting you know how much money you're receiving, and there will be a breakdown on that letter letting you know how much of it is loan funding and how much of it is grant funding. That being said, on BearTrex, it's not super distinguishable. You might be able to tell because your grant is $1,000 and there's a payment on BearTrex that says $1,000. So that's probably the easiest way. Like I said, it's really just the best to keep an eye on your BearTrex account and your bank account at that time. Cool. Whoa, I just muted myself when I meant to talk. Okay, frequently asked questions. And I know some of you are already asking questions, which is great. Okay, cool. So do I need to apply for a loan every year? And the answer is yeah. If you're applying if you need to apply for a loan every year that you need a loan. So I understand on the student loan application, you're going to say, hey, I'm in year 1 of 4, but they don't know that you're coming back for year 2. They don't know that you need a loan for year 2. So you do need to apply for a loan every year that you need one. If you had a loan last year, but you got a sweet gig or an amazing scholarship or something like that, you don't need it for year 2, let's say, just as an example, that's just fine. Your previous student loan can remain interest-free, payment-free, but you're gonna have to do some paperwork to let them know that you're still full-time. And again, I'm using the word paperwork loosely here. It's an online form that you will complete. So you can just come and chat with us starting in the September of year 2, if that's when this is happening, and we can let you know how to confirm your enrollment so that your loans remain interest-free, payment-free. Your loans can remain interest-free, payment-free the entire time that you are a full-time student. So if you only have a student loan in year 1 and you go to school for 10 years, you do an undergrad and then a grad program and then another grad program, that's just fine. That student loan from year 1 can remain interest-free, payment-free as long as you're updating them every year and letting them know that you're a full-time student. By far, the most important thing you can do is making sure that you let them know you're a full-time student. You don't let those student loans go into default. And the best and easiest way to do that is to keep an eye on your student loan portals and not ignore your emails. Excellent. When do I need to pay my loan back? Well, after you stop being a full-time student, whether it's because you have stopped early or because you have graduated, your student loans will have a 6-month grace period. And during that 6-month grace period, Your loans will be interest-free, payment-free that entire time. And then starting in the 7th month, you will be asked to make monthly payments. And again, it is very, very important that you make those monthly payments once you're in the repayment period. It's very difficult to get loans, government student loans back into good standing. I don't want to be scary about that. If you are keeping on top of your email and on top of those things, that won't be an issue. There are also programs that you can apply for, repayment assistance plan that you can apply for, which will help keep your loans in good standing. So just another reason for you to keep on top of your portals and your emails. Cool. The other thing I was going to say is we recommend that you check the portals and or check the websites when it's time for you to graduate, because by the time it's time for you to graduate, some of the repayment policies, some of the interest rates may have changed by the time it's time for you to graduate. So we have seen the interest rate change 3 times in the last 2 years. So if you were in one of our student loan sessions 4 years ago, that is a very different interest rate than what we had, when you first took this presentation. So just come see us or check your the government websites to find out what the repayment kind of situation is at the time that you graduate. That makes sense? Yeah. All right. The last question is not a question that literally anybody asks. There is no human who comes up to us and says, "Hello, how do I manage my student loan?" and check in on it. That's not like a real human question. I threw this question in. It was a ruse to try and get this information into your brain. Again, this looks a little ugly, I understand, but essentially there are going to be, when you have a student loan, 3 kind of main websites or portals for you to keep an eye on things. Each of these portals / websites has a inbox. They won't email you directly with the information in the inbox. They will send you an email when there's information in the inbox that you should log into and go check on, if that makes sense. The main one that most of you are seeing and going to be using today or have already used is the Alberta Student Aid portal. That's where you're applying for your student loan. That's the right now, right here portal. That's about the student loan for this year and maybe last year. This is the portal that's most important while you're a student, because that's where you apply for your government student loans. So again, that's where you're going to get those loan agreements, the Master Student Financial Assistance Agreements. All those things are going to be in the Alberta Student Aid portal. You're going to see an inbox. You're going to set up your notification settings. Nobody here is going to miss an email from them because they're going to all set up your notification settings. The second and third portal are slightly more important once you enter repayment. You can kind of think of them as like online banking for my government loans, but maybe that's not the best way to think of it. But essentially, you're going to have, when you graduate, when you apply for a loan, you're very likely going to come out of it with 2 separate loans. You're going to come out of it with a Canada student loan and an Alberta student loan. Both of them, you'll have to make 2 payments. You'll make one to the Alberta every month and one to the Canada every month. And because there are 2 different loans from 2 different places, you're going to have 2 different portals to check on them. Does that make sense so far? The Alberta portal is called the My Loan portal. So it's this middle one right here. And if you just Google My Loan, it will be there. And then the Canada one is the NSLSC, the National Student Loan Service Center portal, and it's right there. You can actually do a few extra things in this national loan portal. So you'll probably have a login for that pretty quickly. The main thing is that's where you do your Master Student Financial Assistance Agreement through that portal. But don't worry, you're going to get information about it in your Alberta Student Aid. So again, these are the 3 main portals that you'll use. This one for applying for a loan. These 2 are more important in repayment. Set up your notifications, and then even while you're in school, just go and check them maybe once a semester, make sure everything looks good. Okay, everybody's going to do it. It's only slightly confusing. If you ever get confused, you can just go to your Alberta Student Aid portal and there will be information about these 2 portals in there. Okay. Whew. Doing good. Now we're going to actually jump into some of the parts of the actual application. So we're going to look at some screenshots of the application, and we're going to go through some of the trickiest spots of the application. So if you have, as I mentioned earlier, really specific questions about some of the specific sections of the application. Just hang with me for a few minutes while we go through these problem areas together. I might answer your question for you. Before I move on, I just want to check in with our Lindsays. How we doing? Any major questions I can answer after all that? Doing good.
Does anybody know when residence payments are due by chance? They must be large.
August. August.
I keep looking.
Before school starts. It's not.
I'll keep looking for you, Amy. I'll keep looking.
I apologize.
Okay.
I don't know that. I know it's a thing that does cost money, and it's due at some time, but I don't know exactly when. Okay, perfect. Okay, so like I said, stick with me. We're going to go through some of the we're not going to go through every page of the application. We used to do that in the past, but like we don't need to do every single page. Certainly, if you have a question about something that's on a page that I don't talk about, that's just fine. Don't feel like, oh, I can't ask a question about that, or I feel silly asking a question. That's just fine. You can still ask us that question. I'm just going to stick to the main sections of the application that get students, that trip students up. Okay, cool. So when you're applying for a student loan, perhaps you've already been on this website, but you're going to go to Alberta, studentaid.alberta.ca, and this is what it looks like. It used to be a lot grayer, but they updated it, and now it's a little bit gray and blue, which is kind of, that's nice. For most of you, you've already got a login for My Alberta Digital ID. So you're going to try and go here, login. If not, you would go here to the first time users, but you go here to log in. And then you log in. When you get into that login page, it might take you have to remember your password. And once you get logged in, though, you're going to see this welcome screen. It's a little bit longer than what you see here. You'll see a welcome screen. And in the welcome screen, you're going to see, oh, it's that inbox. It's the inbox I talked about, right? So right there, you're going to be able to, in the application, you'll be able to update your notification preferences. There's two ways that you can update that. You can update it to have it notify you in two ways, text message or email. This is where you're going to get your important messages. You're going to get your notice of award letter that lets you know how much loans and grants you're getting. You're going to get your information about those loan agreements that I mentioned, the ones you only have to do the first time, and then any other important documents. But really, again, most students will get, the first time you apply, you're going to get maybe 2 to 3 messages max, and then moving forward, you'll get like 1 a year. Really important that you sign up for that inbox. Okay, cool. Enough about the inbox. Now, if you would like to apply for a government student loan, you're going to go ahead and click on here, apply 21-22. Don't worry about this one down here. This is for spring, summer. If you're in spring, summer, like right now, but that's all. The deadline's already passed for that, so don't worry about that. This is just for upcoming years. So you're going to go ahead and click on apply 21-22. Ta-da! And then it might ask you some FOIP information. You can read through that, no problem. And then it gives you a little summary. It's like, we promise it's not too long. It's only 3 ports. And then you go and click apply. I'm not sure why they give you that little summary. I think they don't want you to be scared that it's going to be too long. But anyway, you get in there and it's actually like, you're like, oh yeah, they weren't lying. It's only 3 sections. It's like not that bad. Yours might look a little bit different than mine because the student loan does auto-populate some information now. So a few fewer questions that you have to fill in yourself, which is pretty cool. But it is only 3 sections. That being said, I say it's only 3 sections, but if you are married, common law, or if you're a dependent, remember, if you're under the age of 23, you might have a 4th section. If you're a dependent, so it's going to be called the parental section because you're answering information about your parents. Or if you have dependents, you're married common law, there will be another section there for that. But many students will only have 3 sections. And then I'll just highlight that this is a cloud saving based system, kind of like Google Docs and things like that. So there's nowhere for you to save, you'll notice. But if you just log out, it will save for you for 7 days. If you need to check on some information or you're waiting to talk to your parents or something like that, and you want to hold off on applying for your student loan for a little bit, that's just fine. Just make sure that you log in once every 7 days so that it saves for you. Okay, cool. Based on that, you're going to go ahead and click on personal information start section. Although, like I said, yours might look slightly different, but you can go ahead and click on that personal information section. The first page is going to ask you like your name and your address and a contact information. But then this is probably, excuse me, this is probably like the bottom two questions here are probably the trickiest questions on the application. So just stick with us while we talk this one through, okay? And then later on, when we're in the like answering questions phase, I'm sure one of the Lindsays will mention it, try to say it in a different way because just saying it a few times in a different way might help. So let's start at the top. Have you lived in Alberta your whole life? Yes or no? If this second question is a little bit tricky for you to answer, if no, was Alberta the last province I've lived the last 12 months without being if that question is you're like, well, I've moved around, and if you're having trouble, just let us know. We can help you answer that question. Permanent disability, government care. For Indigenous status, you are not required to claim Indigenous status at all. If you'd like to, you certainly can there. It won't impact funding in any way. But again, it's not something you have to do. If you are not claiming, you just leave it blank. Don't even press the little drop down arrow. If you are single with no dependent children, if this question may also stumble on a little bit, let us know if you have questions about that. If you've received loan funding from any other province. And then our last two questions, our two doozies of a question. So I'm going to come at you with the hardline stance here about the taxes. And then we will talk about the alternatives. But some of you may be 18, 19, and up to this point, you have not filed your taxes because you haven't needed to, because there hasn't been any reason to apply, file your taxes. There's no reason you don't have income. For the purposes of the student loan application, however, you need to have filed your taxes. So without fail, we often have students who after in the question section, well, I'm 18, I don't need to. But for the purposes of this application, you will have need to have applied for your taxes. So just because there hasn't been a reason before now, doesn't mean there isn't now. Now that you are applying for a government student loan, you will need to have applied for your taxes, okay? And when you apply for your taxes, you get a document back in the mail or on your CRA account, your Canadian Revenue Agency account. This is digital now, and that document will have a bunch of information on it, kind of like a summary of your finances. And one of those things on that summary document is a line that says line 15,000. And just a note, the two advisors, Lindsay's and I, may refer to it as the line 150 because that's what it was called last year. But one of those pieces of information on your tax return on that document is called the line 15,000. The line 15,000 is your gross income from last year. So that is the whole money that you made, not take home, but before taxes for last year. So it's very important that for the student loan application, you have done your taxes. Now, that's my hard line, the rule, the thing I have to tell you. That being said, it is known that many students, and this is from Alberta Student Aid, I'm not just making this up to sound wishy-washy, many students have not yet filed their taxes. So if you haven't filed your taxes, it is okay to write down in that box here, total line 15,000 from your 2020 tax return. It is okay to guess what your gross income was. So if you were working a few shifts a week, you might want to go back and think a little bit about how much money you made last year gross, so before taxes, and write that down in this box here. And then after you've finished your student loan, after you've submitted, sometime in the next few months, you're going to go and file your taxes. And you will let them know if that line 15,000 on your actual tax return is dramatically different from the guess that you had. So again, I'll just reiterate, you can guess what your gross income was for last year. And if you didn't work last year, then your gross income from last year was 0. And you can guess that it was 0, and then you'll write down 0. But even if it was 0, it's still important that you go and do your taxes, because now you're applying for a government student loan. And that's an important part of the government student loan. Also, you're going to get, like, very likely you're going to get some rebate checks and stuff like that just show up in the mail after doing your taxes. So again, up to this point, you might not have needed to, but now you got to do taxes. Okay, so that's my spiel about the taxes. The next question is a really good question. Like it's a question that's really beneficial to students. I think will really help students, but it's difficult to understand. So basically, if your income from last year that you have written down here, the line 15,000 from your 2020 tax year, if you think you're going to be making less in this upcoming year than you did last year, you can write that number down here. So let's say last year you worked some part-time work and you made $10,000. Your exact line 15,000 is $10,000. So you're writing it down exactly, it's $10,000. But for this upcoming year, you're coming back to school. You're in a bunch of classes that you think might be a little bit difficult. So you're not going to work. That's just fine. You don't have to work. It's not a requirement of the student loan. But if you're not working at all this year, you would write down 0 because your expected reduced income would be 0. It's not the difference between the two. It's what you think you're going to be making this upcoming year. You're only going to write down a number in this final box if what you're making for this upcoming year, if you think what you're going to be making for this upcoming year is going to be less than what it was last year. If you think that you're going to be making like about the same amount that you did this year as you did last year, that's just fine. You don't write anything down here. If you think you're going to be making more, like you were, didn't have a job during COVID, but now you do have a job for this upcoming year, don't write down anything. You just leave this box blank. So again, you're only going to write something in this box if you think what you're going to be making employment-wise is going to be less than what you did last year. Whew. So it's a tough one. Lindsay, has any questions so far? How are we doing? That's the toughest one. That's the most talking I'll do on one of the slides.
Yeah, I think a few questions, just like you do still need to file your taxes if you're going to get loans. So even if you're below like the minimum for filing your taxes or anything like that, you still gotta submit that. You can do it now. Even though it's past the deadline, you can still go ahead and do that.
Yeah.
And then just reflect your tax line to the best of your ability. So if you've worked a little bit and you've made a couple $100 or something like that, if you have any pay stubs, you can go back to look at those and enter those numbers, or just your best guess. And then if, as Haley said, if you file your taxes and it comes back and it's a wildly different number, you can contact us and we can look into potentially requesting a change for you. But if it's pretty close, then you should be just fine.
Yeah, exactly. I think a lot of students, especially if you're a younger student, you haven't applied or done your taxes to this point, there isn't been a legal reason for you to. Well, but this loan is the reason now that you have to complete your taxes, right? You didn't need to before because you didn't have income, but now you will need to for this government student loan, if that makes sense. Taxes, fun stuff. Okay, we'll be able to answer more questions as we go about that, especially that bottom question. Again, you're only writing something down in this box if you think what you're going to be making for this upcoming year will be less than what you made last year. Okay, cool. Whew. Great work. We did it. Okay. Then when we're done that section, section number 1 is done. We're on to section number 2. And this is the best section. Now that we've just gotten all the taxes stuff out of the way, this is the best section because this is where you get to talk about what you're taking next year, which is very exciting. Okay, cool. All right. So in the program educational cost section of the application, you're going to go ahead and you can choose University of Alberta. If you're at Campus Saint Jean or if you're at Augustana, you're going to still choose University of Alberta. You're going to go ahead and pick your program, which is really exciting and fun. If you don't see your program there, just let us know. If you're in an after degree, so for example, if you're in an after degree of nursing, you're going to choose Bachelor of Science in Nursing. There's no like after degree. Same with education. If you're in education, you're going to choose a bachelor. If you're in an education after degree, you're going to choose Bachelor of Education. And then you're going to choose year 3 instead of year 1. If you're in engineering, it's a Bachelor of Science in Engineering. All your other programs should be in there. If you don't see your program, just let us know. If you choose a program and you're minor and you don't see any dates pop up, also let us know. That means something else funky went on with the program section. So you're going to want to make sure that actual dates show up here, the period of study dates at the bottom. You never want to be entering your own dates. So you just want to make sure the dates pop up there. I will say if you're in a Bachelor of Arts undeclared or Science undeclared, for whatever reason, the application doesn't have it as undeclared as an option. Not sure why, but there is an option under. So when you click on this drop down here, if you start typing in, here, specialization major, it's going to be this whole alphabetical list. So let's say you're in a Bachelor of Arts and you're undeclared. That's awesome, but it's not going to be undeclared. It's under arts general. So you're gonna, if you're in undeclared, you're gonna look under the A's. If you're in science and undeclared, you're gonna go down undeclared, you're gonna go scroll down to the S's for science general. There's just no undeclared. They're just labeled it as science general. It's general. What else can we say about programs? Really, we can help find those things. Speech language pathology, if you're having trouble finding a program, just let me know. And then, you're going to go ahead and choose your program dates here. If you're a grad student, PS or a professional program, pretty much all of the program lengths in the application just say 4 years. Even if your program length is shorter or longer, don't worry about it. They all just say 4 years, so don't worry about that. Then you're going to go down to the bottom and choose period of study dates. If you're applying for fall and winter right now, amazing, very exciting. You're going to choose September 1 to April 26th, and those will be your study dates. Now your classes might be done earlier than that, but those are the official study dates. All right, now the next section is a little bit funky because if you are not going to be taking a full 10 courses for the both semesters, or if you are, then you might have to do a little bit of math because your tuition isn't up yet in Bear Tracks, but that's okay. No worries. The tuition is actually already loaded into your student loan application. It just takes a little bit, like we load that to all of our student aid. Just takes a lot longer for that to actually appear on your Bear Tracks. But these are the actual fees that come straight from the University of Alberta. So if you are in engineering, science, or engineering, nursing, education, anything with like a set number of courses, a cohort, or if you're in science or arts and you're taking a full 10 courses, you're just going to write down exactly what it says here under full course load amount and go and write it in here in this white box. Okay, so this is if you're taking the maximum number of courses for your program this year, that's what that number is. So you're just going to write down exactly what that says right there, right there. I don't know why, but that little green line makes that sound in my head. 6091. Okay. Same with mandatory fees. You're gonna write down exactly what it says here, mandatory fees in the white box. So a little more on that here. If you're taking fewer than 10 courses, again, nursing, education, engineering, grad students, just write it down exactly what it says in these two boxes. No math needed. It's if you're in arts, science, ALS, and you're not taking a full 10 courses, then you just gotta do a little bit of math for the tuition portion. And all that is you're gonna just take $569, which is the cost of a course, and times it by the number of courses you're taking between September and April. So if you're like, I'm going to be taking 4 courses a semester, 8 courses total, no problem. You're going to just do 569 times 8, and you're going to write it down in this tuition box. Cool. If you are planning on taking 5 in each semester, you're just not registered yet, no big deal. That's just fine. Just write down the amount for 10 courses, the full course load amount. It's just fine. If you end up deciding later in the winter to drop 1 course from 5 courses to 4 courses, again, not a huge deal. You're going to fill it out with the information that you have for today, which is that you're planning on taking these 10 courses, etc. So you're just going to do your little bit of math. I've done some of that math here for you to fill out your tuition. For mandatory fees, everybody has to pay the same amount of mandatory fees, no matter how many courses you're in. If you're in 1 course or 10 courses, you're just going to write down that 1808 or whatever yours says, and write it in that little white box. Okay, cool. I'll bring this slide back up afterwards so that you can see the math if you can't remember it. Same with textbooks. If you're in arts, or if you're in science, nursing, engineering, ed, a professional, just write down exactly what it says here and write it. Oops. There it is, right in that white box. If you are in fewer than 10 courses, otherwise, a grad student, just write down exactly what's in that white box, or put that white box which there. If you're in fewer than 10 courses, again, you'll have to do a little bit of math. You only have to do the math for the tuition and the books, okay? Because those are based on the number of courses that you're in. Computer costs, it's just $500 for everybody. Just $500 for everybody. It doesn't matter if you spend $2,000 on a new computer or if you spend $0 this year. Just write down 500. It's just 500 for everybody. Okay, cool. One of the other pages in this section is the other study information section. And the only reason, like, I don't find these questions to be particularly difficult for students until last year, which was the main one there being, are you enrolled in a correspondence e-learning or distance program? The University of Alberta, our programs are not intended to be online. They're we may have individual courses right now that are online. Very likely, most of you will be in online courses, but the programs themselves are not online programs. They're not designed to be online programs. So you will answer no to that question, okay? This is trying to capture programs such as Athabasca, which is a great program, but it's for institution, but it's all online. There's not even a physical building you can go to at Athabasca, which is not the same for University of Alberta. So you'll just answer no for that one. And then this student identification number, that'll be your 7-digit ID number that you can find in Bear Tracks. It'll probably, if you're a new student, start with 16 or 17. I think we're at now. Cool. If you have any other questions about pages that we missed in that section, let us know, no problemo. And then one of the last sections here, we're just trucking along, is the financial information section. So you can go ahead and start that section there. And I think Lindsay and I were talking about this. I think students sometimes are surprised, like, yeah, this looks a little bit busy for sure. There's lots of boxes on the screen, but I think many students are surprised by how little information is actually required in this section of the application. So I'll start at the top here. Monthly child supports that you pay would be if you yourself, the student, have an ex-spouse and you're paying money towards that ex-spouse for children. Okay, so if you're doing that, you would write that money down there. If not, you would just put 0 or leave that part blank. The next question is asking, while attending school, I will, and then you will indicate whether you're paying rent or mortgage or not. Okay. I like this question a lot because in the past it used to ask, I'm living at home or not. And now it's asking if you pay rent or not, which is kind of nice because we used to have some students who were living at home, but their parents are saying, now that you're in school, you're going to also have to pay some rent. So this is a way for that to be identified there. So if you're paying rent out of your bank account, you would say, or mortgage, you would say, yes, I'm paying rent. Even if you're living at home and paying rent, if you're living in residence, you would say yes. Okay, cool. The next question is probably the hardest question on the whole page because it requires some conversations with parents, which is, which is a thing you might have to do or you may have already done, which is great. But so this question of voluntary contributions from parents is asking just that, are your parents giving you any money to go to school? If they are not giving you any money to go to school, they're letting you live at home for free, you would just put 0 in that box. If they are paying for tuition, you would take the amount, let's say they're giving you $5,000 for tuition, to help towards tuition, you would take that $5,000 and really important here, you're going to divide that by the number of months you're in school, which is 8. So September to April, that's 8 months. This whole section is monthly. So you're going to want to make sure you take that $5,000 that you're getting from your parents and divide it by 8. Otherwise, they're going to think that you're getting $5,000 every month from your parents, which is like, this is like a lot of money. If they're paying for residence and tuition, you're going to take that full lump sum and make sure you divide it by 8. If they are just paying for like your phone bill and a few extra things during the month, you talk to them and they say, yeah, we'll probably give you maybe $200 a month or what have you. You're going to write down that number there. If you have an RESP, you're only going to write down what you're receiving this year from the RESP. So let's say you have $30,000 in an RESP, but you're withdrawing $5,000 for this year. You're going to be receiving $5,000 for this year. You're going to take that $5,000 and again, divide it by 8. So that's something you might have a conversation with their parents about. Are they going to be giving you any money? Have you talked about that? And then you'll have to indicate that there. You're going to indicate it to the best of your ability. So that's why it's important that that you chat with your parents. Okay. All right. The rest of the questions, we always joke that if you don't know what these things are, you probably don't have them. So if you're not sure what AISH is or EI, you would just leave those blank or 0. If you are getting those, and this would be you, not your parents, if you yourself are getting them, or spouse, you would put those in there. Otherwise, those would be blank or zero. If all of these questions are zero, they're all zero. That's just fine. This is not a requirement. They're just asking you what you have in terms of these very specific types of funding. The last question, income from other sources. If you touch the little white box, it'll tell you what it's asking, but it's asking for specifically, I think if you touch it, it says, if you click on it, it says rental income, or what's the other one? Oh, if you're getting money from a business to go back to school. So if you do have those things, that's great. That's where you would write down how much that is monthly. If not, many students do not have those two things. That would be a zero. And again, yeah, these might all just be zero. And lastly, just really want to drive home, there is nowhere on the application that you are writing down your savings accounts, your TFSAs, your RSPs, your money that you're making during the year, your summer income, none of that. They do not care. The thing they care most about is the line 15,000 that we've already talked about and hammered home. So that's why it's so important that you've already done that, the taxes. So that's the thing they most care about. But they're not asking you to write down income from anything else. Income from other sources, they don't care. Don't write that down. So they do not care about your income, your employment, any of that jazz. There is a question, I didn't have a screenshot of it, but there is a question asking you about, what is it called? Other financial resources, I think it's called, would be things like stocks, bonds, or GICs. If you have that, if you have questions about that, just let us know. There will be more information when you click on the right of the box, and a little pop-up thing, kind of like this guy. This one pops up. Cute. Any questions about that, Lindsay's? Doing good? Any other thoughts?
All good.
Rocking. Cool. And then, oh my goodness, for many students, that might be the end of the application for you. Amazing. It's only like 3 sections. Now, for many students, other students, you might have one final section. There is the parental schedule if you are a dependent. So if you are under the age of 23 and you don't see, and mine might look a little bit different than yours, but if you're under the age of 23 and you don't see this kind of final section pop up, let us know. It might be that you answered something in the demographic section that needs to be adjusted. If you have a spouse or common law partner, there will also be a different section that pops up. Both the parental schedule and the spousal schedule or section will ask some questions about where the person is living, how long they have lived there. They'll ask if they are working, and then there's going to be the exact same 2 questions: the line 15,000 and the expected reduced income, which is a nice way for your parents or your spouse to indicate if they're making less money this year than they did last year. If you have questions about those sections, just let us know. When it comes to the parental schedule, there is a place for you to, there's a slot for you to put down information about 2 parents. And if you are in a household with 2 parents, supported by 2 parents, both parents live in your household, then you will write down the information about 2 parents. If you live with just 1 parent and parent number 2 is not in the picture, that is fine. You do not have to track down that parent or anything like that. You can just put parent number 1. But that's only if parent number 2 is just not in the picture and not living with you. Let us know if you have questions about that. If you have really specific questions, family situations can be, really unique and different. So just let us know, and we can let you know how to answer. Generally, you're going to be able to answer without having to cause any undue harm to family relationships. So just let us know if you have questions about that. Cool. Doing good. Excellent. Oh my goodness. And then, oh yeah, Lindsay, you good? No, you're good. She muted herself. All right. Now you have made it, my friends, but it's a joke. You haven't quite made it yet. There's one question at the very end that we'll go through together. When you're done all of your application and you're feeling good about it, you go ahead and click proceed to submit. Don't worry if you made any errors. It's going to be like errors. It's going to show you like you wrote in a weird date or something. So don't feel nervous or scared about clicking the proceed to submit button. It's almost like an error check. So you can go ahead and do that. Once there are no more errors left, I always make lots of errors. But once there are no more errors left, you might not, don't worry about it. That's just me. When there are no more errors left, you can go click proceed to submit. And then there's one last question, and she's a doozy. So stick with me here. So you'll see here, like I said, this we've already gotten an automatic assessment. So like I said, it can take 4 weeks. Remember earlier when I said 4 years, that was a weird gaffe I made. 4 weeks for a loan to be assessed. But most students are going to get an automatic assessment. And when I filled this out, I got an automatic assessment right there. Boom, $18,000. It's a little bit over 15 because there's grant funding involved in that. But this last question on the application before you actually click submit is asking you how much money you want to receive. So in Alberta, you have the chance to cap the amount of loan funding you want to receive. So let's say for whatever reason you want to receive just $5,000 to make it through this year, you can put down $5,000. Even though they've assessed you for 18, you can put down $5,000. If you choose to cap the amount of funding you're receiving, that's awesome. We just always recommend that you do up a budget so that you know how much you're going to need throughout the year, and that you're feeling good about it, because appealing to get the money back that you didn't cap yourself on can take up to 6 weeks, and it can be a lot longer of a process. So just make sure you've chatted with your significant other, your parents, what have you. You're feeling good about the money if you want to cap the amount of money that you're receiving. That being said, if you would like to receive the maximum amount that you're eligible for, leave this box blank. Don't even click on it. Just leave the white box here blank. Don't write down this preliminary assessment number. Just leave it blank. Cool? Leave it blank. If you want to receive the max amount of loans and grants, leave it blank. Okay, cool. If you're a student with a permanent disability, register with our Disability Resources Office, and you're applying for a certain grant, just let us know and we can let you know about that afterwards as well. All right, cool. And then you're going to click next, and you're going to be super duper tempted to not read any of this information because you're like, yeah, it's a contract, whatever. And you're going to try not to read it. And we encourage you to actually do read this one. We know that for most things, most of us on the internet don't read through all of the information, and we really do encourage you. This is only going to take a few minutes of your time. It is a government loan in your name, so just take a few minutes to read through it. Basically, it's saying that you have agreed that everything you've said is truthful and that you don't agree to pay back the loan once you're done school. But this is an important one. You're going to be reading much more difficult things when you're in school. So take a few minutes to read through this declaration information. I know it's really tempting to just be like, yeah, iTunes, yeah, but make sure you read through this one. And then after you submit, that's it. So you maybe had 3, maybe 4 sections to do. You read through your declaration information and you're feeling good. So from here on out, remember, all you have to do is keep an eye on all those portals, specifically your Alberta Student Aid portal, because that's the one that's most relevant when you're a student. If it's your first time applying, you're going to get a special document in there that you have to complete, potentially 1 or 2. So keep an eye on your Alberta Student Aid portal. It might take up to 4 weeks to be assessed. Do not stress out if you didn't get an automatic assessment. If you did, that's great. And then in late August, early September, keep an eye on your BearTracks account and your bank account for the funds to arrive. And then just remember that even though your notice of award letter, which will arrive in your Alberta Student Aid portal, it says September 1st, it won't be. It will be the first week or 2 of September. So just keeping that in mind. And then if you have any questions after that throughout your entire degree about your government student loan funding, you can contact us at the Student Service Center. You can certainly, again, contact Alberta Student Aid, but if you want to, if you're having troubles navigating, contacting them, you can always contact us as well. And we might be able to help you out and see what's going on with your student loan. Woo! All right. So with that in mind, I'm just going to stop the chat or stop the recording. So thank you for everybody who's joined us on the recording, if this is the recording we use. Bye-bye. Whoa, the presentation went away. Okay, give me 1 more second. Boop, 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 doop, doop. Okay. Can you wait? What's going on? sorry, I'm just going to pull up one last screen here. And then we will make it so. I can't see the presentation. Can you all see it, Lindsay's and Lindsay's? No? Okay.